I know, things have kind of been slack over the past couple of weeks in terms of my video uploads and also the my lives. So it'll be another week before I get back on track. Dealing with some death in my family. Not going to go too in depth with the or details with the specifics in that, but just pray for me and my family. Nothing like losing a brother, and and especially the way that I lost my brother. So I, just encourage you guys. The word of prayer. Just keep my family lifted up in prayer. Uh, Also, I want to address the Nephilim post that I made. I'm not going to do the teaching today, but I am going to do a teaching within the next week or so. Um, but I made that post because, you know, there's a lot of teachings out on the Nephilims. From you can look it up on the History Channel, National Geographics. You can go on, I mean, there's so much information that's out there. And for me, when I look into and watch a lot of that information, for me, I see a lot of, and just from my, this is just me, I see a lot of exaggerations. I see a lot of, uh, how can I put it, a lot of mythology from like Greek mythology, Roman mythology. I see a lot of mythology being added to the explanation of the text, and so I made that post purposely to encourage you guys to really take a look at the, just reassess what you've been taught. Reassess what you've been taught and how we interpret what we when we read the scriptures when it comes to Nephilims, right? When we understand that word Nephilim, from a biblical perspective, right? It means you'll see giants. That's the common consensus. You hear giants, but then when you go to uh, look up the definition of it, you'll see tyrant, you'll see bully, and then when you go to the primitive root word, you'll see fall. You'll see falling. You see falling away. There's a number. It's more to that definition than what you read. And for me, some of the questions that has to be answered or addressed is, how did some of these formulas, some of these different theories, what are they based on? How did they come up with these theories to try to explain what giants are? And when we think of giants, you know, are we allowing what we see today define what giants are? I'll use this example like I did in Bible study teaching about spiritual warfare, right? About uh, how does a person that's demon possessed, how do they look, right? Let me adjust my camera. How does a person that's demon possessed look? And their description was basically The Exorcist. Some of you guys probably remember that old movie in the 70s called The Exorcist. Head spinning around several times, green goop coming out of the mouth and all that stuff, right? That's what they think. That's what many people were describing someone being demonic, being possessed by demons. And I had to explain to them that's television. Not every person that has some evil things going on within them are going to look like that. They're going to look just like you. They're going to look just like me, right? So a lot of and I want to say peace and blessings to Apostle Curtis. And Apostle Curtis, I need to get with you so we can plan a feast day, get you out here. And family, I will be making some posts over the next week about our feast day coming up with the Passover and some other things. I'm working on our website to have registration for that as well. Want to get you guys in this year. But back to my point, right? So that was their perception of what someone appeared to look in terms of demonically possessed. Then I asked them a question about what's the appearance of a witch? And they gave their perception of what's been through the media, has how it's been taught in cartoons and horror movies. And I said to them, do you know that there's witches that look just like you and I? They look just like regular people, just like you and I. They're not going to have a big bump on their nose. They're not going to have green skin. They are not going to have all these different things happen. As far as these features. And yes, yes, we have in Purim, and I'll post a date on that as well. I do celebrate Purim, and we use that opportunity to honor the women as well. And I'm going to do a teaching on that as well. Thanks for the inquiry, and I'll post it up the date if you are in the area wanting to attend. Right. So going back to my point, right? There's a lot of things that many are pushing um, that are based off of what they heard someone else teach, right? When I deal with the Nephilim, when you research the Nephilim, it's like, wait a minute, the Book of Enoch, and I don't endorse the Book of Enoch. That's just me because of knowing the contradictions when it was written and all the things behind it. So I'm not trying to throw shade on anyone, but I want to make it clear. Book of Enoch is one of the ones I don't support. There's a reason why it's not included in the canonization. Even if we want to go back to the King James, when he put together committee groups to really come up with that version. But anyway, uh, there's other books I don't support, like the Book of Jasher. There's two books of Jasher, and both of them are forgeries. So can you extract some information out of the historical information out there? Absolutely. But do I use that as my primary source? No. My primary source starts with Torah. That's what it starts with, Torah. Anything that's contradicting those first five books, right, I have questions on. The Book of Enoch was written by, when you study the Book of Enoch, it wasn't one person that wrote the Book of Enoch. It was five different people that provided inputs on different times of the Book of Enoch, and it has a number of contradictions in it. So I'm just using that as an example. But my point that I'm making is, when we start going to the basics, right? When we deal with the Nephilim, the one thing you hear over and over again is the sons of God had relations with the daughters of man, right? The sons of the Most High, right? You'll see Ban or Ban Yah Alahayim had relations with the daughters of man, right? And so when you study that from how it's being taught, it's saying that they produced Nephilims. They produced 450-foot giants. And then some of the things that I'm hearing people explain, I'm like, explain it to me. Just explain Nephilim to me. Explain how someone 450 feet is going to interact with a daughter of man. Then you start hearing all kinds of things of shape-shifting and all this other stuff. It's like, wait a minute, show me scriptures about shapeshifters. Now, I know I could go into some, talk to you about some, when we start getting into demonology, I could talk to you about shapeshifters. Then they say, well, hey, you know what? Well, the Nephilims are they are sons and daughters of fallen angels that are sons of the watchmen angels. I was like, okay, show me scriptures about a particular group that was called watchmen angels. Just give me scripture to substantiate what you're saying, right? Just give me scripture. Let's start with scripture. I hear the things of, okay, well, Amos said that, hey, they were tall like cedar trees. Okay, if you're saying that they're tall like cedar trees, right? Now this is where we got to understand idioms and personifications and metaphors. If I say shack is big as a house, does that mean that shack literally is big as my house? No, but I'm using that to describe just how tall shack is, right? Does that mean when we see tall people that they are sons and daughters of fallen angels, like the African tribe called the Watusi, right? The Watusis, they are giants. contrary to what we think of giants, we think of giants is like they're like Godzilla, but they're considered giants. They are considered statues because when you study them, you will see that the Watusis, that their community, the average height of the women are like 6'6". The average height of the men is like 6'9". I mean, they are tall. They refer to them as being giants. They refer to them as being statues. So when you take in consideration that the average person in the ancient times were 5'5", right? 5'5", 5'6", back in the time of the Israelites. Now, someone that's 6'5", someone even 6 feet tall is going to be, I'll just say 6'5" is going to be a giant to them. Someone that's 7 feet tall is going to be a giant to them. So what is our understanding of what a giant is? When you also see giant, doesn't necessarily refer to height and stature. It also, you'll see the same gadal. When you see gadal, it can transliterate to giant. It can transliterate to great. It can also translate to having what? Many. So this is where I'm going at with my discussion of making that post about the Nephilims, right? You're going to have to, don't give me regurgitated stuff of saying that, oh, well, you know what, they shapeshifters. That's how they could be at 450 feet tall, but then they could be, whoa, wait a minute. Okay, now we're getting into a lot of mystical interpolation of the text. So that's why I made that post, and I didn't provide any answers. I just keep asking the same questions. Okay, let's start with explaining Genesis chapter 6, verse 4. Right? But then in order to even get to Genesis chapter 6, verse 4, you have to go to Genesis chapter 4 and read the last set of passages, the last verse. It says it says all men began to call upon the name of, you'll see in your translations, the Lord with one consent. Well, when you actually study the text, you'll see the word kalal, right? Kalal, right? Or kalal actually means profane. Profane. So what does that profane means? They began to profane, distort the reputation of the Most High. So again, I just saw someone make a post about Anak, the sons of Anak, when it says that the spies described them as being them being grasshoppers compared to them. Again, learn what personification, idioms, and personification is. We can embellish certain things. We can exaggerate certain things. And already we know that 10 of those spies already did not want to go and face those giants, right? They didn't want to go face what they appeared to, in their mind, giants. They didn't want to face those guys, so they started exaggerating. Come on now. If those same people, and I'm going to use this as a point, right? The sons of Anak, right? Who they were scared to face, they're Canaanites. But then when you go to the book of Joshua, right? When you go to the book of Joshua, I believe chapter 11, you see that Joshua and his soldiers clearing out Judah's territory, they defeated these same people. So were they giants like 50 foot tall, and they like the comparing like a scale of me standing next to a grasshopper? Come on, family, we have to put things in this proper context. What those spies, right? What they were doing was of course they exaggerated. They exaggerated that they were these guys. We're grasshoppers compared to them. Two things you have to understand about Israel when they were in the desert. Number one is when they came out of Egypt, they didn't have a large army. Number one, right? Number two, right? Again, when they went to that territory, those 10 spies came back and they exaggerated. So that's what I want to make sure you understand: idioms, personification, metaphors. Study those three words, then you can get a proper clarity. Then you can get proper clarity on how to approach the text. I want to say shout outs to my cousin, um, um, Moray Brown, Bishop Dr. Brown, holding down boom. Yeah, cuz I'm just touching on a couple of things here because unfortunately, there's a lot of teaching on the Nephilim, and I'm like, they making it into like it's a Jack and a Beanstalk type thing. Really, I mean, uh, a lot of these photos that I see people passing around, they've been doctored. It's proven. So that's why I'm going to do a teaching on Genesis chapter 6, but I'm starting at verse 4, chapter 4. Not just starting at chapter 6, we're starting at chapter 4. And then you start getting an understanding, because I'm going to throw another monkey wrench out there. I'm going to throw another monkey wrench out there. If we see in the scriptures, based upon Numbers chapter 1, Numbers chapter 2, that the lineage is through the father, right? So why do we see the Most High have a problem with man? Why do we see man in Genesis chapter 6, but we don't see angels or them described as being hybrids? Because again, Nephilim just means, it could be tyrant. It also means giant. It means bully. See, again, I see a question about the grapes, right? This is what we have to understand: proper perspective. These grapes were not the size of apples, right? See, study the text. We have to not take a modern perspective and backdate it. Yes, they came out there and displayed that, hey, the land was prosperous. They weren't walking out there with grapes that was size of cantaloupes. They were showing how prosperous the territory is. Because for some reason, when we think of giants, we think that the food is going to be giant too. Okay, then the land of giants, like going back to like Monster Island, like King Kong, we're gonna see giant men, we're gonna see dinosaurs, we're gonna see uh, 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 we're gonna see giant insects. We're gonna see everything is going to be scaled up because of giants. And family, that's not how it works. So I wanted to do a quick live. I got to go. I got to meet my daughter, but I want to do a quick live, family. Go ahead and we'll talk about it later. I'm going to do a teaching, but the reason why I dropped that video, not video, I made the post, is just so that way we can trigger your thoughts. That's all I want to talk about. Just want to trigger your thoughts. All right. Thank you, family. Talk to you later. Shalom.